Everybody. Hi there, my name is Josh. I host a series here at the American Cinematheque called Killer Movies. And I love shark movies and I love Sean Byrne movies, so I feel blessed to be here. Without further ado, let's start bringing up. We got a lot of guests here. We got the director, I heard we got the writer now. We got three of our stars. Let's start with Sean Byrne. The director, come up here. We got the writer, Nick Lepard. I hope I'm saying that correctly. We got our three leads. We got Hassie, Heuston, Josh Heuston, and Courtney. Well, let's start with, you mentioned 50th anniversary of a certain little independent shark film we all know is Jaws. And I think, anyone who kind of grows up in the shadow of Jaws loving it, and maybe, I guess my question for you two, the filmmakers, did you always want to make a shark movie? And obviously I'm sure there's the pressure of, even if you do, it's like they already made the greatest shark movie ever, where do you go? I think you found a pretty good way in, but did you always want to make a shark movie, both of you?
Me, not personally, because Jaws is just so amazing. But I just loved it. It's one of my favourite movies, and I feel like in a way I did a disservice to the sharks because it kind of demonised them. But it was also so successful that every other shark film kind of copied that formula. So I wasn't really thinking about it until I read Nick's script, and it was like, this actually felt like it was the first original shark film since Jaws, and this this kind of like rolling a serial killer film and a shark film into one, and kind of correcting that kind of cruel kind of misconception that sharks are the baddies and kind of pointing the finger at man. I thought it was just such an interesting take, but I'm not sure where, I'm guessing you've always wanted to make a shark film because you've written it.
I always wanted to watch one, wanted to watch more. So, but I hadn't seen the one that I wanted to see. So, I guess at the time I was surfing a lot out in the water, and like most people, pretty terrified of sharks. And then I had this sort of epiphany that I've been so obsessed with the teeth, but I'm not going to feel the teeth. It's more like I'm going to get hit by a freight train. Then I'm going to feel the teeth. And so then I was like, okay, I want to make a movie about sharks. But, I knew enough to know that Jaws had sort of misrepresented sharks. I didn't want to do that again, so I started thinking of a way to make a more accurate shark film. And that was sort of how Tucker was born.
That's a good segue into Tucker. I mean, you really chew out. How excited were you when you read the script of just being like, oh, this guy, I can really sink my teeth into it, pun intended?
I just thought, oh man, I really want to have a beer with that bloke. He's a lot of fun. He's that kind of guy you accidentally sit next to at the pub and wish you hadn't, But Nick, gave me such great material, and Sean and I, got online straight away with where we felt like it needed to be pitched. And I think the fun part about that character is there's a lot of depth to him actually, and we sort of explored that in varying degrees, and some stuff made the edit, some didn't, but there was an effort to really dig into the sort of tender, wounded child that is probably alive in a lot of serial killers out there. It's got to stem from somewhere real, and I had to, I was sort of gifted with something where it was easy not to judge him in a way, and instead kind of find a way in through some kind of truth, but yet develop this fun, kind of cringy boat captain on the surface. So I leapt at the opportunity. Obviously, it's just such great material, and getting to dance with Sean is field and this genre. It's not a space I've played in before, and then the gift of these two courageous performers as well was really a fun experience, actually.
Yeah, and Josh and Hassie, I mean, you guys are kind of, it's like a rom-com on your end that gets real fucked up in the middle, but ultimately ends on a nice, heartwarming beat. But I'm curious, again, reading the script, like you guys really get put through the ringer. I mean, all of you do. You guys all three take a lot of damage. Is that something you were excited about, or you kind of like, is there any amount of dread realizing that you're gonna get the shit beat out of you for a whole movie?
I was kind of looking forward to it, to be honest. Yeah, when those scenes were popping up and like Josh had an insane amount of fighting experience and all that sort of stuff. So for me to just jump in and give that a go was kind of appealing in a strange way. But yeah, as you're saying, Hassie and I, all that love story stuff was kind of played in the first week, and for the first week we were playing a rom-com, and then all of a sudden I'm in a harness, and it's
Switch gears.
yeah.
Yeah, the first week was pretty chill, wasn't it? And suddenly they're hanging on a bull trade.
Totally different speed. Yeah, I think for me, you know, when I first got the script, like, you know, I devoured it, and I was sitting and I knew that it was, you know, like I had a real sober conversation with myself about what it would take to go. I was like, ooh, that's in the ocean at night. That's gonna be some night shoots. But yeah, the script was so incredible, and obviously, like, Sean's the guy. So it was kind of a no-brainer.
I would say, yeah, I mean, they're kind of, I think, sort of underselling how brave they are, the cast. Like, it was, you know, it's kind of cinematic madness to try and do it for real. And I mean, the tank was kind of cost prohibitive, which was kind of a blessing. Because like that big in a tank, it's just, we couldn't do it, which meant, you know, like there were a lot of stunts, and they're actually there on the harness, and you know.
And we had a shark attack.
And we had a
Yeah,
shark
tell
attack.
him, John.
Yeah.
Tell
Alright,
him.
we're not supposed to talk about this, but I've been telling everyone. So one of our safety divers, because there's a lot of people, you know, we've got cast in the water, we're out at sea, shooting off the back of this boat. It's all practical action, and one of our safety divers, who was a very experienced man, he was a military veteran, combat medic, seen a lot of shit. He is on the back of a jet ski on a sled, hanging out in the water. We've got people kind of assessing certain things, and he got pulled under by his flipper by a bull shark, and it got snapped off, and he never saw the fucking thing because it was that hard and fast. And suffice to say, he took some time off. And we never shot cast in the water again. Without a barrier around them, which they had to create. There's a much larger, I guess, cage really that you can't see to keep everybody safe, because shit got real. That was like day 3.
Courtney and my wife's stuff.
I mean, in keeping with the theme of the film, the shark didn't hurt anyone. It just sort of turned out.
It was his fault.
It said hello and took off.
I was watching the dailies and I was like, huh, they switched to a pool.
But some of Josh's shot, close-ups we had to do in the pool, because the moment that happened, it was like, no one is stepping foot in the water. It's like, I don't care if it's at the beach and you're just dipping your toe in and there's sand there. No one's sort of going in again after that. But they hadn't been like an attack like that on the Gold Coast in 40 years. So, yeah, it doesn't matter how stringent you are with your safety, these things, sometimes these things go.
It's pretty cool though, like we were able to rescue, you know, our own kind of efforts by, you know, they created this huge thing that you can't actually see, this barrier essentially. So we were kept safe, but we're able to, you know, still maintain our ambitions and shoot out at sea, which was pretty cool. It's still pretty terrifying when, you know, you just get a reality check, because you know they're there, but then you're like,
Were you all on set when that happened, or you heard about it?
no, we were there.
Yeah.
It just kind of went quiet for a bit. Everyone was like, the mood shifted. And our first AD at Enfield was like, you know, kind of hanging out, and you're kind of like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah, no one tells us anything until it's like way after. I just saw all these meetings taking place and we stopped shooting, and it was like something bad's happened.
I feel like it's a testament of how cool the stunt guys were too, because like really it happened, we didn't see it until later, and like you said, it was like all of a sudden the vibe changed. Sweet Joshua was on the hook.
So no one sure what to talk about this or not. You know, it seems like every kind of possession film was like, oh, there was real hauntings on the set and everything. And he said, oh, no one would believe us. And I was like, do we talk about this or not? And Troy, one of the producers, is like, I've still got the insurance form.
Slap that on the poster. I'm curious, how much changed in the script from when you first came up with the idea? Do you live in Australia, or?
No.
Okay, step one, what was the process? I mean, I don't think it was that hard to be, ocean's the ocean, right? But was that when you came on board, you were like, let's change the location, or was that always the location?
It was actually set in Santa Cruz to start with, and then Sean got on board, and he sold me immediately on sort of the like candy-coated colors of the Gold Coast mixed with the horrors we were going to see. I was like, why didn't I think of that? And yeah, so it was, and then actually before Sean was on board, the version he read was a lot funnier. I think it was because I couldn't tell anyone the pitch without laughing. I was like, yeah, serial killer feeds his victims to sharks. And then I spoke to Sean, he was like, no, we're doing it scary. Like Texas Chainsaw with sharks. It's like, okay. So then we sort of went into it and just kind of got real. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of felt like it fitted with the character too, because she's running away, from like this kind of, she's had a troubled kind of past, so it makes sense. She just, leave her home country and just kind of go, from just surf around the world, but she just kind of, ends up in much kind of deeper waters in Australia, but also it's like, it tapped into kind of like co-production opportunities in Australia and, and the dollar kind of stretches as well. So it felt like it worked kind of creatively and from a budget perspective as well.
And I was curious, you made a self-deprecating joke in your intro about the gap in between your films. I will say you've made 3 films and they're all great, so you're batting 1,000. If you haven't seen Loved Ones and Devil's Candy, you gotta get out. Check those out. What gets you out of the house to finally direct a movie? What were the elements of this, since you weren't always wanting to make a shark movie?
It was just that combination. It felt like it was such a high concept. It felt like you could write it on a napkin and sell it, where it was like, serial killer film meets kind of shark film, and this killer using the sharks as his kind of weapon and manipulating them, rather than kind of blaming the sharks. It just felt so incredibly fresh, but also just the characters. It was like Captain Tucker was there from the start. It was all there from the start, and it just felt like it was just such a fun kind of unhinged kind of thrill ride, and then we kind of worked at kind of like reducing the sharks and getting them to work for the budget and just wanting it to be as wild a ride as it could possibly be, but it all just sort of stemmed from the scripts. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I've written constantly since the Devil's Candy and optioned all of my scripts, but it's just it's kind of a reality when you make an original R-rated film, and films about humans hunting other humans, that it's, Hollywood can be kind of risk averse. So this was great. I was like, yeah, this is humans hunting other humans, but it's got sharks, and shark movies make money. In fact, I read somewhere on the internet a long time ago that the shark movie was the only type of movie that had never lost money, and we know the internet never lies. So I was like, wow, this is a great combination, and hopefully we can get straddle both of those demographics, And so part of it was marketing, but most of it was just the excitement that Nick had come up with something that I'd just never seen before, and I felt like everyone loves shark films, but they got a bit tired and was waiting for something that was fresh, and I was like, this is it, I felt like it was like I hit the jackpot when I read it, and I was just hoping that it hadn't been sent around town, which otherwise someone else might have got it.
And the Zephyr character, it's so great that that just from the get-go, you don't even see her sitting there being like bummed when we first cut to her in the boat. She's already trying to escape. And I like that just like in every scene, she's always, there's the marlin metaphor, the shark metaphor, but always moving forward. How much of that was already on the page? Did that character change at all?
Zephyr was there from day one. Yeah.
And how did you tackle it? It must have been fun to be, so high on the prize character.
Yeah, I think I've always kind of gravitated towards tough, strong characters, and when I read it, I was like, this bitch is a badass, so I know this would be great, and And yeah, I think, it's so well written and, you know, I think they're perfect adversaries. And that's why, you know, Tucker's character makes her the Marlin.
And were there challenges? You know, it's a small cast. It's just kind of you, mostly you and Jai bouncing off each other for a lot of the movie. Is that tough? I mean, or is that actually kind of fun in a way?
It's the best. I mean, I think the three of us immediately had great chemistry, and you know, it's so fun to hit the ball back at someone who hits it just as hard, and you know, makes my job a lot easier, that's for sure.
Speaking of hit hard, let's talk a little bit about your fight scene. Pretty brutal. Was that, I mean, Josh, how much of that was just you being like, throw me around, I guess?
Josh loves to get thrown around. Look at him go.
No, I feel like, yeah, Jai took the reins on that a lot. That sounds weird now.
It's obviously heavily choreographed, and we had a great team helping us dial that in. But I think we're both guys who appreciate, you know, sending it a little bit, and Josh certainly was, like, you know, those hits to his ribs and stuff. There's a way to keep each other safe always, which is the most important thing, but you need a dance partner that wants to kind of get physical. It's a very physical film, and I'd say the same for Hats. I mean, like, you can read a script and think, fuck, it's going to be a tough day, but eventually you are going to be handcuffed to a bed for 15 hours at a time and keep going. And, you know, I mean, I'd probably say I had the easiest job out of everyone, because it's not that strenuous to be the hunter, you know, when you're in fear of your life, and it's just an exhausting process. And we work in a very privileged business and get to make, you know, art for fun, which is certainly something I'm ever grateful for. But the days are not, you know, it's not a glamorous thing making a film like this, and nor should it be. But you need, you know, partners who are down to kind of get it and push themselves, and I think everyone did, and that attitude, you know, permeates the work and hopefully ends up on screen. So yeah, props to these guys for going for it.
And speaking of dance partners, was the dance scene in the script, or did that come about during production?
I mean, it ended up in the script. It wasn't in the script originally, and we wanted July so badly. Before sending it out, it was all hands on deck, and it's just like being shot out of a cannon, because we needed to make the summer date. But it wasn't a lot of time to cast it, and so then it was actually Troy Lum, one of our producers. Before it went out, he was going, and I don't know if this is true or not, but he goes, actors love dance scenes. It's like, you put a dance scene in there, that can make a difference. And so it's not written as it's performed as a dance.
I might not do it.
And so I'm not sure whether that had any bearing on you saying yes or not, but I had no idea what July was going to do. I mean, we talked about kind of the psychology of the moment, and it's almost like a rap party for a snuff film, but I had no idea what to dance.
I had no idea what was going to happen either. We made a choice not to choreograph anything, and Sean and I had spoken briefly about what the energy, kind of, you know, how we wanted it to feel in the movie in the context of where Tucker was at. But we scheduled it for the very end of one night, and I quietly just got shit-faced in my trailer and then went out there and had a boogie.
After that, was it always VHS? I feel like there's definitely a demo here that's like, oh shit, you made a shark movie and a VHS movie?
It's a VHS movie.
Yeah.
Dangerous animals.
But was that always the idea that he was kind of trapped back in time and liked the old technology?
Yes, totally.
I mean, talk a little bit about that, just that idea of why, what do you think that says about the character as a choice?
Well, I think it relates, you know, when Tucker was a kid, it was probably watching VHS. The shark attack happened when he was a kid. You know, a lot of his motivation is wrapped up in his childhood. And then I also think, you know, he's clearly, you meet these like salty guys that live on boats. They're not the most tech savvy. At VHS, it's pretty straightforward. So, and of course, you have like this rich film history of killers with VHS cameras. So, like, we have all the reasons. So let's do it.
There's no digital footprint either, so it's hard
There was like a very early script where for the final he goes digital and he's like, hey, this is easy. And for obvious reasons, scrap that. Tried it out one morning, I was like, ooh, all right.
I did just think it was funny though, because this movie does such a good job of like the sharks are never like bad guys, they don't get hurt, you know, you kind of empathize with their part in all this. But then the camera gets thrown overboard, the audience cheers, but I was like, no, the camera didn't do anything. That was an antique.
Well, it's almost like that's, you know, he cares more about that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The album, but he got love physical media because it's harder to put the like locks of hair in, you know, if it's all just like pink.
Well, and it's interesting that you said the movie used to be funnier, because it is blank. I mean, it's scary, intense, but it's also very funny. I'm kind of curious, and I guess this is a question for everybody, the conversations on tone and kind of like how you hit upon the exact tone of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tonally quite similar to the Loved Ones, where there's comedy, but it's situational and it's kind of absurdist, and even though on the page it kind of seems extreme, you know, when you balance it with a really kind of, you know, slick summer commercial look, it feels like it's extreme, but it's kind of extreme fun. So we were kind of as influenced by Top Gun Maverick as kind of David Lynch and Jaws, and it's sort of a bit of a blending. But I think of myself as a really commercial filmmaker, and you know, my biggest fear is that the audience get like a numb ass. So I just always want things to be moving as quickly as possible. And I think we're all trying to make a movie. You know, it's like, yeah, it's kind of unhinged, but ultimately it's a popcorn film, and that kind of dictated everything. And you know, just wanting it to be a ride and bright and summery and fucked up.
We were also, you know, in order to pull off the concept of Tucker and the sharks, there was no way of it was like torture porn adjacent, and it was like really important not to get too close to it. There always had to be the mitigation of the sharks between Zephyr and Tucker. We didn't want to make a movie where it was just like this guy abusing chained up women. It was like, no, there has to be the shark in there. And, you know, we wanted to just release the pressure with comedy as well. Just keep it as far away from that sort of like early 2000s genre for a second.
I feel like it's also a testament to Jai, you know, I feel like he brings such comedic relief to a role that, like, in the hands of another actor could have, like, just been so heavy, you know, and the truth is, like, some of the scenes we were doing, like, I mean, when it wasn't, like, coverage, it was hard for me to, like, be scared, because I was, like, trying not to laugh. I even love just in that one scene where he just comes in, he's like, water?
Water?
Yeah, that. Shit's funny.
It's a good time.
Well, and talk about if you were kind of setting the tone. I mean, was it just obvious to you when you read the script, Jai? Like, was the tone already there? And you're like, oh, I get this.
It's there, but it's like you either are getting together with people who share a language and you get to do that, or not. And it doesn't mean like everything we all did just all fucking made sense all day. Like, definitely not. It's you're working at it. You know, and it's interesting. It's hard for me at times in this area because it's not like a genre I've played in before. So, you know, sometimes you sort of manipulate your style really to suit things. We do that all the time. You jump between different projects, but you know, manipulating it within like where things might kind of crescendo in a kind of horror thing can really change like what feels really fucking edgy in the moment. You know, or what you give yourself permission to once it goes into the cut. And, you know, you need someone like Sean at the helm there to steer that in because it's not always easy to predict. You know, so it's, you know, just you work with it. But I did, you know, from reading it, I thought this guy is a lot of fun. Or at least needs to be, in my opinion, for it to work. And I was, you know, granted the opportunity to have a go at that. So, you know, if people have fun with it, then I'm stoked.
I think it's also kind of a bit about like how the spider catches the fly as well. There's license to be really charismatic because you know that's kind of how I guess he gets his victims to kind of lower his guard with that kind of charm. But yeah, I mean, and that's you know that's kind of theoretical, but it's not until you know Jai's on set and he's doing this. It's like, oh my God, it's like you know it's like absolute Captain Charisma, and it's you know so much fun, and it's also you felt like automatically you knew what was the movie line as well, or it's like welcome aboard. You go, oh, this is for the audience, isn't it? And it's like, so you know, I think that's a part of just knowing when it's a movie, and also then when you know when it's a dark moment, you're kind of capturing the broken inner child and all of that, and yeah, I mean it's like it's also a sort of testament to Hassie's performance. It's like you know up against this absolute force of nature, and you've got to have this chemistry with Ella who plays Heather, and you know it's like a older sister younger sister relationship. And then there's a love story going on, and then you've got to go up against like Steve Irwin on acid.
You know me, like I love to find the joke where I can. I'm like, there's no room for comedy in this. But it was cool.
Well, there's so much action and fighting in the movie, but I mean, what are the days like where you're just both handcuffed to a bed all day, every day?
I was convinced the handcuffs were fake. I was like, there's no way. Like, her wrist must be beat to hell.
I had bruises on my wrist for 3 months after filming. Sorry, that was so heavy. Just a little anecdote. Yeah, they were, yeah.
Yeah, it was very method. We had the real shark turn up. You've got the. It's like.
Well, for me to watch the thumb scene too.
Yeah, I mean that's how hard the cast went, and Hassie where. Yeah, I think that was the last day, wasn't it? Of like.
It was the last scene of the last day.
Oh yeah, and then. Yeah, I mean, well, you tell the story.
Do I want to? I think I passed out.
Yeah, I mean, I was obviously, you can probably predict the scene with the thumb, and I remember watching it going, this performance is fucking amazing, and it was, and then you actually passed out.
Our DP was like, oh, and I just slowly started going down, but still handcuffed.
So it's like, yeah, there was, yeah.
I left it all on the field, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. And you left your thumb on the pillow.
Yeah, the little hotel chocolate mint.
Have any of you been shark diving?
I did last week.
Just did it last week?
Just to make a point.
Yeah.
Did.
And
It wasn't that scary.
The sharks were scared of you, I imagine.
I was in a very controlled circumstance, but I was given the opportunity in the promotion of this film to go and do it. But it was a little different to what you're seeing up there. It wasn't like with great whites in the fucking, in the middle of the ocean, put it that way. The sharks are wild, man.
has anyone else been tempted from making this movie, or did the movie turn you off from the idea?
I'm totally down. I mean, I've scuba dived most of my life and been around sharks doing that too. So, but I haven't done it in a cage. I mean, I'd like to do that in Cape Town one day.
I was given the opportunity to realize it's like, you got this.
Josh bailed out.
No, I've seen enough. The harness is enough.
Yeah, I'd be keen to it. That was the first thing. Was like, I've got to do the cage dive, or else I'm not going to know how to direct it. And then of course the schedule compressed, and suddenly it was like that didn't happen. So yeah, birthday present.
I mean, what was the process of getting the footage of the sharks? Like the great white you have, was that a real scar? Were those scars real on that real shark?
Yeah, that's a real shark. Everything that you see underwater, they're all real sharks. So we had a shark researcher, and it's all kind of 4K footage, but it was sort of storyboarded, and we had photographic references, and we're like, these are the angles that we need in the shark cage dive scene at the beginning, and also with the great white underwater. So that's the real great white with those scars, and also the breaching shot. That's a real great white, and it's the same shark. So we had to try and find footage of the same stuff, and obviously it didn't breach with Jai in its mouth, but it did have a seal, and Jai actually was we got him on the harness and he was ripped out of the water, and so we did as much of it practically as possible. But the fins above water are obviously kind of CG because it's very hard to block kind of fin action and have to be very precise. But yeah, most of it's real.
And maybe to start wrapping things up, I am curious. I realized that Tucker did get chomped in half, but they also blew up the shark at the end of Jaws, and we still got 3 more movies. Could Tucker return?
Twin brother.
I'm open to it.
It's giving city slickers.
Well, thanks so much to our guests
Thank you,
today.
guys.